he has the whole Irish jazz history in him. It is amazing that he's still teaching. And
yeah, I taught English literature and classics, you know, in a secondary school, yeah. The classics were interesting because in the school in Coolmine, I sort of wanted to bring in classics. And the classics, just basically Latin, Greek, but not in the language. We taught it through English, of course, you know, but it was just to get a background of those kind of great, you know, like Homer's writing, the Odyssey, the Latin, like, you know, Virgil and all that. It was a great background, you know. So we introduced that, and it was very successful. It was an option in Leaving Cert, and people took it on, you know. Well, English literature, yeah, well, I mean, we did the usual, did the great Shakespeare and all, and a great influence because it was just the breakup where the new course was coming into, so you could take a choice and you could do Irish, right, I did James Joyce, I did Portrait of the Artist, and before that it wasn't really acceptable. People did in junior set, they even did Roddy Doyle, which would have been language from Roddy Doyle wasn't that acceptable at the time, so there was a changing attitude in the Department of Education in English at least, so I was lucky to be part of that. You know, and it was great, yeah. The music that I taught outside of that was, of course, starting in Newpark. That was 80s. The first I remember run we were talking about that, 87 or 89 was, there was like Mike McMullen, myself and Ronan and Conor, would you try? And we were basically working at a weekend. We had one day. And then things got, because everybody, except maybe Mike McMullen, he was professional, but Conor was working and I was a teacher, and Ron was working in a delicatessen, you know. So the idea was basically just to try and get people interested in jazz. We didn't have the vocabulary and the language that obviously we have now. We're just trying to get the language that Mike McMullen used, but he brought the idea of using 2-5-1 movements, you know, the stuff that we were hearing, but we didn't know the terminology yet, you know, because nobody taught us that thing. So it was the embryonic stages of that Newpark was then we got just more people interested, and then there was a diploma starting. Then Ronan stopped working in a delicatessen and took it on full time, and then he was asking me to stop, and eventually I stopped teaching at the secondary school and then got involved as well. So it really was interesting how it started from nothing, very little anyway, and what it became, as you know, what it became into a full-time degree course, you know, and that, you know. And I think the fact of the standard of tuition was given, we had good teachers, you know, and they were replaced by some of the students themselves afterwards. So the continuation was there, which is good, yeah.
I'm grateful for this quality of his, which is he would play with anyone, with students, or students with very little experience, for example. And once he played with another person and other people, he just puts all his energy into it. There's never be like, I'm playing with this, you know, lesser musician or a student or something, so I play and this is easy for me. He just puts all his energy into it all the time, and when he's playing, I'm sure he doesn't care about anything else. And he would just become music, so that's one thing.
The interesting thing was that prior to my visit was Pat Metheny, and I think Rick, so there was an Irish guy coming over, and when I arrived, his new album was signed to Pat on and I still have that, which is nice. It was nice. Yeah, the experience in Berklee, of course, what can I say? It's great experience. I went around all the classes. They asked me to talk, which I did. And I think the thing that struck me most was that the facilities were amazing, you know. and also everything you needed was there, as it were, you know. While at the same time to say they do pick, because of the student population that they could choose from, they picked obviously some of the best, you know. It was interesting too, even the guitar department of, you know, you had that maybe down the bottom you would get different style. You might have a Django teacher. You had people like John teaching kind of country music, you know, and as you come up to the pyramidal to the top, you had Mick Goodrick, who taught them all, as it were. So I met him, and he asked me to come in, and he gave me some of his own books that he was writing. One of the ones that just came out recently, before he died, actually, he passed away there, very sad. He was irreplaceable in many ways, because, you know, in his room, the photographs of all. They were not just jazz guitars. Steve Vai studied with him, you know, rock stars and all that, and he was just amazing, amazing. The standard of teaching as well was just second to none, you know, because you could feel that with you know, there were public lectures. Rick's wife Anne was also head of the vocal, you know, and I went down with her. She's come down my class. You can visit my class, and just to go around and the standard performance, and also the standard of student performances. It was amazing, and that's why I suppose we can say that it's one of the greatest schools in producing some of the greatest players.
He has the whole Irish jazz history in him. It is amazing that he's still teaching. And I'm not sure if the young students are aware of this, but they are lucky to have him as a teacher. And I think that by the fourth year, for example, in DCU, for example, they are fully aware of that. At the beginning, maybe not realizing, but very quickly realize you have this very special teacher, you know.
About like what you teach in jazz. I think the two areas I really like to concentrate is, well, just learning the grammar of the language. That's what I like to think, and you know, getting that grammar of just getting like your scales, and you know, where you, because that's going to help you to communicate, you know. It's like any language, you get your grammar together, your verbs, you know, and in jazz it's getting your scales and all your chords, and then see. And now it's not the only way. Maybe there are other ways. Some people have got very good ears; they can hear it. But at least when you've got all that foundation, what's good? The inner ear is hearing everything right, and that's making that choice all the time. So you're. I think that's what I like. The other thing too, just soloing and improvising and all that. You know, once they get that they can hear, their ears formed, they can really interact with people, and even somebody who's playing solos, they can accompany well in terms of listening to the soloist, giving them space and all that. That's the things I like to teach, and it seems to work when they actually perform in groups. And let's face it, unless they're solo performers, but if they're playing in groups, I think this is where the interaction, that's the direction they should take, and communicate that. And also, I think if they do that, they work a lot then, because people want to work with them, when you can see that they really interact with in ensembles, whoever they're playing with. Yeah.
So the Tommy, his work has been heroic in that sense. I think that, and he kept playing, and he's still teaching, and hasn't lost any of the edge or the energy that it seems to be at this point. So yeah, his existence is very precious in the musical community in Ireland, I think.
You always like to have future projects. That keeps you going, and that keeps that, as the French say, bonne continuation. You keep going, and you keep saying, okay, because that's what Beckett keeps saying, just keep going, you know. And therefore, getting opportunities like somebody offers you, or there's somebody coming over, you play. I suppose you still have to expose yourself to be available and to work with people. And I think the sense of working with people is what I'm trying to teach, and you have to obviously apply it to yourself. That that somebody comes along with new stuff, you have to be will be open to play it, not to say, oh no, I don't play. So I think an open mind and following through. And even working, I'm lucky in a way. I work with different people. Like I say, I work with Zoomies sometimes, and that is not necessarily like typical swing jazz music, but it keeps me in such a way. I'm trying to play differently, and at the same time that brings another aspect to my playing, And then working with great jazz musician keeps you in line to where you're coming from originally, So it's just that keeping of where the continuity of where you're coming from, and at the same time just a sense that whatever opens up around the corner, that that in some way you can deal with it, and that you feel that you have something to offer. If I feel like I have something to contribute, then I'm happy. And that's the way I'd like to feel if new projects arrive, that I have something to offer, something to contribute. Yeah.